Good morning, Desiree. Frankly, we don't know where the Guptas are. We are given to understand that they do still make frequent visits to India. They come from this small town in northern India called Saharanpur, which is about half a day's drive away from the national capital. And the last time they were here was in 2019, remember, for the wedding of their sons. This was a high-profile event that was conducted in the Himalayan foothills, and that earned a lot of press coverage. But since then, they've mostly held a very low profile. We understand they have been coming to India, but given flight restrictions, the lockdowns that have been in place since the pandemic started, it's unclear how many visits they've made to the country. But right now, from what we understand, they're not here.
Now, the South African government revoked the extradition treaty and requested the United Arab Emirates to assist them in bringing them to South Africa. What happened to the extradition report?
Well, from what we understand, India and South Africa do have an extradition treaty. In the past, every time this issue has come up about whether or not the Indian government will do what it can to help South Africa bring the Guptas home and prosecute them in the state capture inquiry, India has always said it's willing to help. From what we understand right now, this message to the Interpol to execute the arrest warrants that are out for the Guptas and their wives is something that will follow the following process. Interpol officials will contact the Central Bureau of Investigation here in India. It's the agency that liaises with the Interpol here in the country. It's an organization that investigates big crimes in the country. It operates under the Home Ministry. But from what we've seen so far, the Indian government, the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation, has not confirmed whether or not it has been contacted by Interpol agencies. We've also been in touch with the South African High Commission here in Delhi to ask them if a diplomatic request has been made by the South African government to India to try and arrest the Guptas the next time they come to the country, but there isn't much clarity on that yet. But we're given to understand that this might be the two-pronged policy that might be followed in this particular instance. Whenever that Interpol message reaches the CBI here in the country, then the process begins of identifying where the Gupta brothers usually, what are the areas they visit, what are the locations they usually come to, and then trying to trace their whereabouts. That's how this process, we're given to understand, is going to be executed.
Neha, have you been able to speak to the Indian authorities or Guptas with regards to this?
I have tried to reach out to various authorities. I've reached out to my sources and contacts in the Indian Foreign Ministry. They tell me that so far there hasn't been any official communication they've received from the South African government. Any sort of message from the Indian Home Ministry letting them know that this process is going to begin hasn't reached them either. I've also been in touch with contacts in the Central Bureau of Investigation. They're also not able to confirm just yet if they've received any kind of message from Interpol just yet. So, all of this is, I'm given to understand, still under process. This is going to be something that involves various jurisdictions, so it's a complicated process we're speaking of. But India has on various occasions expressed its intent. It says it will help South Africa try and bring justice on this particular instance. I've also reached out to various Gupta brother family members and friends in Saharanpur, in the town that they hail from, but unfortunately have not been able to make contact with any of them. And I must say that in the last few years, ever since there was a lot more media coverage here in the country, getting any kind of access to Gupta friends in India has been very, very difficult. They've just refused to talk to me.
Do you think the authorities in India and the UAE will cooperate with Interpol this time?
India has said it will cooperate. I think the problem here is the fact that South Africa does not have an extradition treaty with the United Arab Emirates, and that's where the Gupta brothers are reportedly stationed, have been for the last several years. But the fact of the matter is that most experts I've spoken to are also pointing to the fact that they regularly visit India, or at least they did until before the pandemic. And if India receives intimation from the Interpol, from the South African government to pursue pursue this, then that would be one avenue that India has to explore to try and arrest the Gupta brothers. They've also had several run-ins with the Indian authorities here in the country as well. In the last few years, there's been a tax probe that was launched against them, but that sort of petered out. We didn't really hear what the conclusion on that front was. But, whenever this process is formally executed, an official notice is sent from Interpol to the Central Bureau of Investigation, India will cooperate. We must also remember that just a few days ago, the foreign ministers of the BRICS nations had a virtual meeting. South Africa and India have historically close ties. They've coordinated even when it comes to the pandemic approach as well. They filed that waiver petition at the WTO as well. So these are two countries that have worked closely in the past. They continue to work closely as well. And most experts tell me on this front as well, there will be cooperation from India extended towards South Africa as well.
Neha, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on this story.